Gindo's Games!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Gendo Okesha here with a League of Legends guide just for you. Today, we shall be discussing the topic of jungling. Some of you who are new may be asking, what is a jungler? And indeed, what is the jungle? Well, the jungle, if you take a look at the map, is the area in between the lanes, inhabited by neutral monsters. Ignore the fact that it's more of a forest than a jungle, colloquialisms dictate otherwise. The role of the jungler is many-faceted, but their primary, most basic purpose is to take advantage of these neutral monsters, killing them for gold and XP. This allows your team to fully benefit from all gold and experience sources on the map, and putting one more lane ahead in levels. That is to say, if there is a jungler, then you allow your team one more lane with only one champion in it. Since experience points are normally shared, that one player will level up faster than if there were two. In addition to basic jungling, the jungler is also generally responsible for controlling objectives, ganking, and a large chunk of warding around the map. First, however, let's look at the jungle itself. Each side's jungle consists of 5 camps: blue buff, wolves, wraiths, red buff, and golems. The blue buff camp contains the ancient golem, who holds the buff, and 2 young lizards who toss tiny little fireballs at you. They're pretty pitiful, but actually quite important, and we'll talk about why later. The blue buff itself grants mana and energy regeneration, as well as cooldown reduction. At level 1, the entire camp will give you enough XP to reach level 2. The golem hits quite hard though, and can kill you if you aren't careful. The wolves are the fastest moving and attacking camp. Though their attack damage is low, they have a pretty high critical strike chance that could ruin you if you aren't careful. The giant wolf grants you a small percentage of your missing health and mana when you kill it. The wraith camp is generally considered the weakest. That's why there's 4 of them, 1 big one and 3 small ones. Like the wolves, the big one will grant you some health and mana when you kill it. Interestingly, the large wraith has more armor than anything else in the non-buff camps, so you should always focus it down first. This is especially true with junglers who have some form of area of effect damage. Dr. Mundo's Burning Agony, for example, can kill just about all of the small ones while he's busy attacking the big one. The red buff camp contains the Lizard Elder, who holds the buff, and 2 young lizards exactly like the blue buff camp. The red buff makes your basic attacks stronger, dealing additional damage over time and slowing the target for a few seconds. Just like the blue buff, clearing the camp first will let you reach level 2. Finally, the golems are the strongest non-buff camp. Why? Well, they hit really hard and they have a lot of health. If you can best them though, the reward is well worth it, as they give quite a lot of XP and gold for your trouble. Fortunately, the larger one gives a health and mana bonus just like the giant wolf and wraith. All camps spawn at 1 minute and 55 seconds. When killed, each of the non-buff or small camps will respawn 50 seconds after the last monster in the camp has died. The buff camps will respawn 5 minutes afterwards. Your first clearing of the jungle is your most important. It sets the general tone of the game and ensures the stability of future clears. Once you're through the first time, everything should be smooth sailing as far as clearing the jungle again. When you start, you have to decide which side of the jungle do you want to begin on, or, more accurately, which buff do you want to get first. The blue buff, with its cooldown reduction and bonus mana, will help you clear the jungle much faster. Some champions, who use a lot of mana at early levels, such as Amumu and Fiddlesticks, essentially have to start at blue buff, or else their clearing will be extremely slow. Starting with red buff allows for earlier ganking. The slow makes it a lot easier for you to land kills, and in some cases, if you're using an auto-attack based champion, it will help you clear the jungle faster too. This is especially true of champions who do not use mana, such as Shyvana or Lee Sin. When clearing, you also need to decide just how aggressive you wish to be. In a moment, I will begin to describe your basic clear of the jungle, but remember there are other options. Some aggressive junglers will clear only the 2 buffs and then immediately go gank. Some may even gank at level 2 after having only taken the red buff. These methods tend to require considerably more coordination on the part of your team, so keep them in mind as you get more practice in as a jungler. They also require that your teammates provide what is called a leash. Leash, in this context, comes from when monsters used to chase the first target that hit it, rather than whoever is closest. Nowadays, this simply means that your allies should help you out in taking down your first buff camp. If they can do it without having you waste smite as well, awesome! Just so long as they leave before they accidentally take your experience points or the buff. It's very important that they do this, especially at higher levels of play. If they lose 1 or 2 minion kills, so what? It's much more important that the junglers start off strongly so they can provide more help later. If you are new to this, however, your allies probably are too. You can't always rely on them knowing what to do, so I will show you the 2 basic jungle clears that you can do without help. You should practice this in a custom game before trying it the first time. It will help you gain an understanding of just how much punishment your character can take at the start. Either method will get you to level 4 by clearing each jungle camp once. Beginning at the blue buff is most common. Remember to use Smite to save yourself a lot of trouble. From there, it's a simple straight line. Clear the wolves and the wraiths. Your Smite should come off cooldown while you fight the red buff, just in time to use it again. Then clear the golems. It's important to note that with most camps, you should kill the biggest monster first, as they will deal the vast majority of the damage to you. The golems are the only exception to this. They deal almost the same amount, but the smaller golem dies to just a few hits. Therefore, killing the small golem first is worthwhile. Starting from red buff isn't quite as straight a line, but still easy. Clear the red buff and make a beeline for golems. There will be a little bit of backtracking, but then it's time to kill wraiths, wolves, and finally the blue buff. Pretty simple, right? Once you hit level 4, you'll be ready to gank some lanes or head back to base for more items if you find yourself low on health but high on gold. Simple as that clear may be, jungling is certainly not easy, and you must properly equip yourself, both outside and inside the game, to be effective. Outside the game, you have runes and masteries. While there are many ways to optimize specific junglers, they all share a few things in common. In runes, that consists of flat armor seals. These are extremely useful as monsters only have basic attacks. They'll save you a lot of health. Even if you aren't able to purchase tier 3 runes, this is the one instance I'd recommend purchasing the tier 1 equivalent. Masteries can help you out here as well, specifically the defense tree. These aren't necessary on every single jungler, but they are definitely useful, especially when you're first starting out. Tough Skin reduces damage you take from monsters, as does Hardiness by giving you more armor. Bladed Armor deals damage to monsters every time they hit you, helping you clear the jungle faster. Summoner's Resolve gives the handy bonus of making Smite give you gold every time you use it. It's not much, but it stacks up over time. In the offense tree, there is also Butcher, which will make you deal extra damage versus monsters. It should help you out a good bit. Within the game, there are a variety of items that can help you out. Primarily, when starting the game, you will most likely begin with a Hunter's Machete and 5 health potions. Hunter's Machete is very powerful in the jungle, but does nothing to minions or champions, so don't let me catch you ever starting with this anywhere else. Some champions can start with other items, such as Cloth Armor, Doran's Blade, Doran's Ring, and so on, but this is your basic setup. Don't forget to use those potions too while you run through the jungle. They are very, very important for keeping you alive. Hunter's Machete can become a variety of useful items that help you out both in the jungle and out of it. Madred's Razors let you deal significantly more damage to monsters with each auto attack. Its next step, Wriggle's Lantern, does even more damage, grants lifesteal, and even gives you a free ward to place every few minutes. Hunter's Machete can also become Spirit Stone, and its greater forms, Spirit of the Ancient Golem, Spirit of the Elder Lizard, and Spirit of the Spectral Wraith. These are awesome for tanky, damaging, and caster-based junglers respectively, granting awesome extra damage in the jungle and unique bonuses otherwise, such as health, cooldown reduction, tenacity, bleeding damage, and spell vamp. They are all extremely efficient and powerful, and you should consider purchasing them. Finally, to help you in the jungle, there is the summoner spell Smite. Always take Smite. Even if you think you can jungle without it, that's not the point. Not only does it make it easier for you to clear the jungle with more health, it also gives gold when you use it with the mastery, it counts as a spell for the purposes of spell vamp, which is innate on some champions like Lee Sin, and most importantly, it lets you secure and steal objectives. It does 1000 damage when you're level 18. This is really quite powerful for getting your team Dragon and Baron, as well as stealing buffs or securing them for yourself. Go ahead, not take it if you dare. Just don't cry to me when the other jungler comes and steals all your stuff. Speaking of stealing stuff, let's talk about counter-jungling, that is, stealing the enemy jungler's camps. You can, of course, go to the other side of the map and steal whole camps from them, but that isn't necessarily optimal. It's often far better to steal only part of the camp. For example, you might go in and kill the large wraith, but not any of the smaller wraiths. The large wraith has most of the golden XP, so the enemy is left with only the tiny little amount that the small ones give. The large one won't respawn until the whole camp is died, and only then does the respawn timer start ticking. This is where the small lizards I mentioned earlier come into play. The buff camps take 5 minutes to respawn. If you steal the buff and leave the lizards, the enemy is denied from getting it for much longer. On the other hand, if you want to steal the whole camp, do so. You can then keep track of when it will next spawn to steal it again. If you're only taking part of the camp though, think about what effect it will have on the enemy. How much time will they have to spend clearing the camp of small monsters? If it's a Mumu, for example, he can clear full camps all at once with his AoE abilities, so leaving more than one monster alive would just give them more stuff. If it's someone like Xin Zhao though, who has mostly just an auto attack for damage, it will be more of their time and energy wasted clearing the camp again. You can also use opportunities like this to ward the enemy jungle. This will help your team keep track of them, but it also gives you the chance to steal from them even more, or even get a kill on them. Say for example you ward the enemy red buff. If you then spot them taking it, you can run in to smite steal it and then kill them for it. Free stuff! As the jungler, you should try and carry a few wards with you as often as possible. The jungler wanders around the map more than any other role, so you have a great opportunity to ward where your allies can't get for whatever reason. While you're wandering, you can also gank lanes. The jungler should try and help any lane he can, be it one that is in trouble and behind, or one that is ahead and he wants to get more ahead. Ganking is arguably easiest for the jungler. It's very difficult to know a jungler's whereabouts at all times, but a laner who tries to gank can more easily be called as missing or spotted on the way. Ganking is a topic that deserves its own video, but for now remember that you should always try to get between your enemy and their escape route. If your ally has pushed to the enemy tower, it's probably not a good time to gank. Also, when ganking, be sure to make sure your allies are aware by pinging the target. If they don't see you coming and you jump in, the gank will likely fail. If your gank is successful, you can then lead your allies to take other objectives like the turrets and the dragon. Finally, let me talk about buffs. After the first clear, the jungler is much less reliant on buffs in most cases. He should generally keep the red for himself during the laning phase, as it's most useful in a ganking situation, but will later be more powerful on your AD carry. The blue buff, on the other hand, can and very often should be donated. Usually this goes to the AP caster in the middle lane, as they often expend a lot of mana when trying to cast their spells, but consider who on your team can use it best. If you're counter-jungling well, you can even donate the enemy's buffs. Just make sure your allies are aware when you try to do this by pinging and telling them in chat, and try to have the buff monster low on health already when your allies come to get it. The less time they have to spend out of lane, the better. All this combines to make the jungler a very important member of the team, a leader in action throughout the game by controlling buffs and providing ganks. It's a lot to stay on top of, and your allies will expect a lot from you, but if you can handle the pressure, then jungling is very rewarding and fun. If this sounds like your cup of tea, I can recommend a few junglers to start with that are cheap to get and easy to pick up. Both Warwick and Fiddlesticks have beyond amazing sustain in the jungle, making it very unlikely that you can die while clearing it. They both also have amazing ganks past level 6 to help your allies with. Nunu's sustain is similarly powerful, and he can be quite a lot of fun to bully enemy junglers with and steal all their stuff. So thanks for watching, everyone. If you have enjoyed this guide, please let me know by hitting the like button. Speak up in the comments below if you have advice or questions. We're all here to learn. Subscribe for future content including champion guides, gameplay guides, and other possibly not LOL content. Follow me on Twitch for streams and Twitter and Facebook to see what else is going on. Till next time, I've been Gin, and you've been watching me talk about a video game.